Hi, I'm Lauritsen with WCCO and CBS News Minnesota. With the sun staying out a little bit longer each day, the dog days of summer are almost upon us. And during a Minnesota summer, there is no shortage of beautiful scenic views, like this one at Minneopa State Park near Mankato. But how about a view from thousands of feet straight up? Aamott's hot air balloons can take you from one state to another. Sunrise on a June morning. And much like the balloons they'll be riding in, a group of early risers has gathered in Holton, Wisconsin. They're ready for takeoff, with the hope of crossing state lines and landing somewhere near Stillwater.
So I got up at 5 after 3, picked my dad up at 3:30, and I made the comment in the van when we were on our way out here that I don't even get up this early to go fishing.
Instead of catching walleyes, they'll catch a glimpse of the St. Croix Valley in a way that's rarely seen. After a gentle release into the atmosphere, pilot Scott Aamodt takes over.
My office up here, it's a pretty nice place to be. You know, we're really just kind of exposed to it here in the St. Croix Valley because some of the pioneers in ballooning are from this area. In the early 60s is really when it kind of took off in this area, and that's really where it took off in the whole country.
He's been doing this for 35 years, powered by propane. Aamodt takes us 4,000 feet above the river. The balloon itself is made of fire and tear-resistant nylon. It's large enough and colorful enough to be seen from miles away. From inside the basket, you quite literally get a bird's eye view.
There's no better way to see the St. Croix Valley with the two bridges there in downtown Stillwater.
Do you ever sneak up on people? It's so quiet up here and peaceful, which we've established, but how often do you sneak up on somebody?
We've caught some people in their backyard pool that thought it was private.
That's all we'll say about that.
Exactly.
There's no engine noise, but also no steering wheel. So Scott uses the wind and his burners to change altitudes.
Yep, I can hear you. Definitely straight out of the south up here.
Touching down is another story.
Off of 96.
Open fields and even backyards serve as landing zones.
And now I'm just dumping hot air out the top so we don't go any further.
He gets permission from the homeowner before he packs up. But even then, the ride isn't over. After being lighter than air, it's tradition to have a champagne toast.
Should we have a toast to a beautiful morning and a safe flight?
Up and back down again safely.
Any flight we can walk away from is a good flight.
This is customary, right?
Oh yes, it's tradition.
What happens if we don't do this?
Well, it's bad luck if we don't do champagne after the flight.
Well, we can't take any chances. Scott says conditions have to be almost perfect to go up in a hot air balloon. There has to be light wind and no rain in the forecast. For more information on Aamott's hot air balloon rides, just go to WCCO.com/links. From thousands of feet above ground in a hot air balloon to thousands of feet below ground in St. Louis County, let's take a tour of the Sudan mine.
So we're going to follow the ore as we head underground.
Towering high above the twin cities of Tower and Sudan.
And we have a light in there, okay?
Is the beginning of a journey to the center of the earth. Or at least a good half mile in that direction.
The lowest level goes down 2,341 feet, so nearly half a mile.
To be exact.
Yeah. We are the deepest mine here in Minnesota. We're the oldest mine.
The Sudan mine began as an open pit mine in 1892, but within 10 years it moved underground, and it stayed that way until it closed in 1962. Visitors today descend in cages, much like the miners did. The hoist that transports the cages is powered by an electric motor and more than 6,000 total feet of cable.
So once you get underground, you load up onto a train. The train takes you about 3/4 of a mile back to what was known as the stope. That's where the miners did all their work.
Their work was harvesting ore. They could send up to 2 tons of the mineral-rich rock at a time. It was ultimately turned into steel that helped power the country through 2 world wars.
You light a candle and you shine it against the wall, you know you're drilling into iron because it sparkles.
Miners would labor in the dark, the cold, and the noise.
And plug your ears, it's going to get noisy. Here we go.
At its peak, about 2,000 miners worked 12-hour shifts 6 days a week.
In the winter in northern Minnesota, you would literally never see the sun. If you worked a day shift, you'd come down here, it was dark, you left, it was dark.
When she turned the lights off and you realized how dark it was they worked in, I I was in awe. I mean, these guys must have been hardy souls.
And a cubic foot of this stuff weighs in at about 340 pounds.
For the crew here now, the goal is to shed light on a time that was and encourage visitors to dig a little deeper into this era of Minnesota history.
They sacrificed a lot for their families. They wanted their kids to get an education.
Summer is officially in bloom and there's no shortage of flowers catching our attention. There's no better example of that than at the Rose Garden at Leif Erickson Park in Duluth. Lake Superior is known as the Unsalted Sea. Its beaches and its ports are a destination for entertainment and industry. And just when you think you've seen this great lake from all angles, along comes something relatively new.
This is one of my favorite gardens in the whole world. It's a world-class garden, fabulous gardens. With the backdrop of Lake Superior, the hills of Duluth, and a railroad bed next to it, fabulous.
Margaret J. Anderson is president of the Lake Superior Rose Society and one of the keepers of this 6-acre garden. There are more than 15,000 plants and flowers at the park. 3,000 of them are roses. Here, roses are red, but also about 18 other colors.
There's white, red, there's bicolors and blends and peach and apricot and some yellow.
The colors have popped throughout history, even more so since the entire garden was essentially picked up and moved across town in the mid-90s.
In 1994, they started building the freeway, so they put the Rose Garden on top of the freeway. So it is very unique in its location and the fact that we're next to the gorgeous lake, and then we're also over a freeway.
Wendy Wohlwend is a rose expert, also known as a rosarian. Her crew works hard to maintain the flowers. Being on top of the I-35 freeway can make things a bit thorny at times. The garden can freeze from the top and from the bottom. It's a Minnesota problem that they don't have to worry about in the summer heat.
Beginning of April all the way up till October, where there's always something to do. Fertilizing, pruning, weeding.
Weeding some more.
Some more, yeah.
But it pays off. Among the fountain, the gazebo, and the budding beauty, weddings and celebrations are held, and there are almost as many camera-toting visitors on site as there are rose bushes.
I think the thing that hits you first is the smell. It smells very good.
We went on a train ride, and when we saw the flower garden from a distance, we wanted to come see it for ourselves.
Just like people, no two flowers are the same. Different color schemes called circles are found throughout the park, and each needs to be handled differently in the spring and fall, so that in the summer, there's time to stop and smell the roses.
To have a rose garden so special at this location, and then have people enjoy it, whether they eat their lunch, they meditate, they have a dance recital or wedding reception. It's just a lovely place to congregate and be together and enjoy nature, the sunshine, and the water.
The annual Rose Fest will take place on Saturday, July 9th from 11 to 2. It was once a thriving community. Now Forestville's population is 0, but its buildings remain. Let's take a trip near the Iowa border and visit a treasure ghost town in Fillmore County. All across southern Minnesota, you'll find hustling and bustling towns. And then you'll find one that's the exact opposite. A quiet little hamlet with no businesses, no traffic, and no residents. People hear the word ghost town and they think, it's got to be haunted. So no proof yet.
No proof yet.
Okay.
I'll say yet.
Because Forestville doesn't need a mayor, Matt Idem is the town's manager.
It was a pretty prominent town because of its position on the stagecoach line.
In 1852, the first settlers arrived in Forestville after treaties were signed with the Dakota people. The general store, which still stands today, was the epicenter. Robert Foster and Felix Meehan were the original owners.
You needed things that drew people to the area. If you read old advertisements to bring people to Forestville, they would talk about the general store and the schools.
Catering to immigrants from Europe, Canada, and the East Coast, Foster and Meehan stocked the store with $700 worth of goods. The goal was to make it a one-stop shop.
It was the Amazon.com of its day. You could get anything you wanted at the general store.
That included medicines that probably wouldn't fly nowadays.
When you were sick, you saw someone like Thomas Meehan, just some guy with a recipe book.
Thomas Meehan eventually took over the property from his father, and getting home after work only took about 5 seconds. You walk a few feet from the general store to the residence.
Yep. Yep, so this was the family sitting room.
Forestville hit its peak in the 1860s with 150 residents, making it one of the biggest towns south of Minneapolis. It had sawmills, a blacksmith shop, a hotel, and even a distillery.
It was a real happening place.
But much of it was gone by 1910. The railroad never came through like the town hoped, and people moved to towns like Wyckoff, Spring Valley, and Fountain. The Meehan's bought out the land and turned it into an industrial farm. The buildings and goods that remain are originals. A testament to longevity is that all the brick you see in this ghost town was made right here in Forestville.
On the other side? Kind of showed us like exactly what it was like back then. It kind of reminded me of the Little House on the Prairie, yeah.
There's food that these days, visitors fill the empty spaces. That includes 5th graders from Decorah, Iowa.
I think that's kind of cool. And it's bizarre.
170 years of history. Not bad for a town that hasn't had a single inhabitant in more than a century. Thomas Meehan once ran for governor. The general public can tour Forestville from Memorial Day weekend through October. For more information, visit wcco.com/links. From the wacky to the wild, there's a place in Lakeville that has it all. So grab a camera and strike a pose with movie props and discarded junk at Hot Sam's Antiques. There's a dignified-looking pheasant perched high above Interstate 35 in Lakeville, but this is no ordinary bird. The pheasant and the parrot next to it are gatekeepers to one of the most interesting places in Minnesota.
Me being a sucker for a piece of junk, I kept buying these crazy things that we could bring on the property and set up.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly, and it works very well for me.
Does it ever? At Hot Sam's Antiques and Photo Park, you'll find dinosaurs, rockets, beach cabanas, and Martians. Several times a day, there's a UFO sighting on your property. Who says aliens aren't real?
Not me.
Jake Hood and his mother Gladys built this park about 35 years ago. Gladys herself was a bit of a novelty. She was a women's NASCAR champion in the 1950s, where she got the nickname Hot Sam. Gladys would go to junkyards to fix her race cars and come back with oddities.
My mom was basically a collector of just about anything she could drag home. She was so happy. I couldn't deny her anything.
The mother-son duo built a giant knick-knack dynasty, but when Gladys passed away in 2010, Jake was heartbroken. He lost interest in the park for a while. Ultimately, it was the people, not the props, that brought him back.
They would come back constantly and just tell me how much they enjoyed coming out with their children and whatnot. And so I got kind of re-inspired. Pretty soon the ideas just started pouring out of the sky for me.
With help from his dog, Aliu, and his partner, Kathleen Sacre.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Jake continues to tinker and build. During the winters, they head south to visit movie sets and junkyards.
We load up a trailer full of all kinds of craziness that we come by.
That includes the original shark prototype for the movie Jaws.
You're gonna need a bigger antique store.
There was no fins on it. It was broken half. And I looked at it and I said, that's a salvage job if I ever seen one.
Everybody likes to smile.
That includes the first customer of the year. Gary Lux drove all the way from St. Joseph, Missouri.
But they make such fun things out of just nothing, or I hate to say junk, but it's not junk after you put it together like this.
After his mom died, a friend told Jake something that stuck with him.
Try not to look in the distance for your happiness. He says, grow your happiness under your feet.
And he has. Jake's pretty sure his mother would be proud. His goal is simple: give people something to smile about.
I want them to have a smile on their face when they come up the driveway, and I want them to leave with that smile.
There's a place in our state where you can hit a nice drive down the fairway while surrounded by hits from the Beatles. Let's take a trip to Montgomery, where the Beatles and Sandbunkers come together.
Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right.
It's both a song and a forecast that every golf course owner wants to hear. Greg McCush hears it every day, even when it's raining.
A lot of people will say, wow, your owner must really like the Beatles, and I generally just say, yep. He does.
His love for the Beatles began in junior high, about the same time he was emerging as a pretty good golfer. So when he bought the Montgomery National Golf Club 5 years ago, he decided to combine his two loves, taking golfers on a magical mystery tour.
It didn't happen overnight. It just kept on getting new layers. For example, we've got all of our holes are named different Beatles songs.
Hole number 1 may be the most sacred. A few years back, Greg's friend John had a heart attack while on the green. Fortunately, he survived, and that's how hole 1 got its name.
I said, John, we're going to call that hole A Day in a Life for you. And he said, I would prefer if it was called A Little Help from My Friends.
It also takes a little help from the grounds crew to keep the yellow submarine looking so yellow. Greg painted it that distinct color right after buying it.
It was a prop from the movie Tora, Tora, Tora. And I guess they had 2 of them, and they blew up one, and they didn't need a second.
Hole number 10 is named While My Guitar Gently Weeps, because the sand trap is shaped like a 50-foot Olsen guitar.
If you're going to end up in a bunker, this is a good one to end up in.
It's really cool, but you don't want to be in the neck of it. A lot of people are cursing me for putting it here.
Which is worse, to hit the yellow submarine or the guitar bunker?
It's hitting just past the yellow submarine, but not enough to get over the water. That's the worst.
That's happened to you before?
Oh, several times, yes.
Walking through the pro shop is like walking down Penny Lane.
Penny Lane is in my ears and in my eyes.
I've got the rarest jukebox in the world. We've painted a piano just like McCartney's piano.
It's wonderful. It's a great course, very well manicured, and it's fun. Love the Beatles theme.
There's not another one in the, in the country that I know of that's even a music theme.
And there's more to come. Greg is building an event center along with a new pro shop, in part because he needs more space for all his Beatles stuff.
This will be a shrine to the Beatles. I've got a lot of cool memorabilia, so it'll be all Beatles.
At this course, it's true that all you need is love. And maybe a golf lesson or 2.
Greg plans to call the new bar he's opening at the event center Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Pars Club. It's set to open this fall. Whether you're from the land of 10,000 lakes or Dairyland, USA, fishing is a pretty big deal. Let's go across the border to the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame in Hayward, Wisconsin.
I love it. I think it's fantastic.
In the town of Hayward, the line has been cast, the hook has been set, and about 50,000 visitors a year are reeled in.
Bringing my niece here when she was younger, and now bringing our friends here, just a good place to make some memories.
This is also home to the world's largest muskie. It's about 4 stories tall and half a city block long.
I've seen the inside of a couple of muskie, but nothing quite this big.
And now the tables have turned on you, haven't they?
Absolutely.
Now you're inside a muskie.
Exactly.
From the inside of the Mammoth Muskie to the inside of the museum, you'll find the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame.
The founder is here, Bob and Fanny Cutts.
It's a shrine to more than 400 anglers, from record holders to those who've made significant contributions to the sport.
Louis Sprague caught the world record muskie, Kurt Gowdy, go on and on and on.
He's known for baseball, but Ted Williams liked to fish almost more than play baseball.
Absolutely. He was a big freshwater, mostly trout and salmon.
Emmett Brown is the Hall of Fame's executive director. The who's who of freshwater fishermen and women includes inductees from across the country, but Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan have the most.
This is where the concentration of fresh water is. It's up here.
There are also over 100,000 artifacts inside, including rooms dedicated just to the evolution of boat motors, dating back to the early 20th century.
1909 Evinrude.
Legend has it that Ole Evinrude invented his famous outboard motor so he could get to the ice cream parlor across the lake a little bit faster.
How much truth is there to that? Maybe nothing, maybe it's an absolutely true story, but...
Well, ice cream will do a lot tomorrow.
Absolutely, you got it.
You'll also find vintage reels, mounts, electronics, and of course, fishing lures. More than 20,000 to be exact, from the primitive to the colorful.
Most lures were made to catch fishermen, not fish.
If these walls could talk, there would be endless tales to tell. Here, you don't even have to be an angler to catch fishing fever, or at least an appreciation for what the sport has meant
to the Midwest.
We love it. It's all about fishing, and we came to see the big fish.
We like to say it's like a peek in the granddad's old tackle box. So I think they can get that from it too. They say, oh yeah, I remember that.
A restaurant that is uniquely Minnesota has been around for more than a century. Let's head to Blue Earth County and visit the Rapidan Dam store near Mankato.
My sister lives two miles away from here, and you can hear the roar of the dam from there.
For more than a century, people have been drawn to the Rapidan Dam because of its sights and sounds. During that same time, they've also been drawn to the store next door because of its smells and sweets. They come here to get a dam burger, right?
Dam burger.
Or a dam piece of pie.
Dam piece of pie, dam shake.
There's also seating in the...
David Hershka and his sister Jenny Barnes run the Dam store, along with their dad Jim.
We bought it in '72.
The family is celebrating their 50th year at one of the most Minnesotan restaurants around. Pies, burgers, and bait are their specialty.
$4 a scoop.
But customers also come for the nostalgia and camaraderie.
It's kind of a destination.
My dad was here before me, and he started bringing me down here, and now I bring my grandkids and soon-to-be great-grandkid.
David and Jenny themselves grew up helping their parents, working in a restaurant that used to be a house.
When they bought it in '72, there was no restrooms even on it. They had outhouses out back.
But over the years, word got around, and they started keeping tabs on where their customers were coming from.
We had people from Germany, Switzerland, Soviet Union, the Ukraine. It's kind of like Facebook, you know, before there was Facebook.
While David runs the grill, Jenny bakes the pies. She once baked 750 pies in a month.
Sometimes I don't get home till 4 in the morning. The people love it, and I want to keep making the people as happy as I can.
Oh, I get it all. You gotta have one of each by the end of the summer.
There is concern that the dam could be removed, which would also impact the little store next door. But if that doesn't happen, look for things to keep flowing for another 100 years.
A lot of our customers, you know, every time they come in, they say, great, you didn't change a thing in this place. They don't want us to do a thing to it. It's where I've lived for 42 years, and I plan to stay another 42.
You can have a piece of that yummy pie now through November 1st. Whether you're munching on some damn pie or taking in the scenic, beautiful views, you can end your day with a tasteful heritage. Schell's Brewing in New Ulm has a legacy that goes down smooth. Not too many towns in Minnesota can say they have a 27-foot tall statue watching over them. Herman the German is hard to miss, but he's just one part of New Ulm's tasteful heritage.
German town, German beer, it was natural, you know.
How can you go wrong?
Yeah, right. So.
Ted Marti is a fifth-generation president of Schell's. His great-great-great-grandfather, August Schell, a German immigrant, started it all in 1860 after realizing there was a thirst for beer in the area. Through Prohibition, when all they could make was root beer and cola, to the time when Ted himself decided to buy Grain Belt and then introduced a beer called Northeast. Were you surprised how popular Northeast was?
Yeah, really surprised. It was like the perfect storm. I mean, when do you introduce a beer and you have people following the beer truck around to liquor stores because they can't find it?
Today, people can follow Schell's history at the brewery's museum connected to the brand new beer hall. Part of Ted's job is to track down vintage Schell's or Grain Belt signs and bring them home. Any idea how old this is?
It's got to be from I would say the late 1800s, 1890, something like that.
It's like walking down memory lane with a beer in hand.
And then you had to pound it down in here, and you had to quick tighten it up. And then that would...
And if you weren't fast enough...
It would shoot the rod right up.
Old Faithful. It reminds me of college a little bit. From the fifth generation to the sixth.
So this is our whirlpool, our fourth and final kettle here.
Ted's son Franz wears many hats, from keeping track of day-to-day operations to planning for their Oktoberfest celebration. It's about as German as it can get.
Yeah, for not being in Germany.
At one point, he was even in charge of taking care of the brewery's peacocks, Bonnie and Clyde. Colorful birds have been brewery mascots since it began. Franz has watched his father and those before him build Schell's into an operation that now produces 145,000 barrels a year, with more than 30 different kinds of beer. Machines do what human hands once did, and keeping up is both challenging and rewarding.
It's definitely a labor of love. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears goes into it.
But worth it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way.
They've said cheers to their first century and a half, and now Schell's Brewing is getting ready for whatever the future has on tap.
We're not going anywhere, and we're used to good times, bad times, lots of roadblocks thrown in the way, and we manage.
For beer enthusiasts, Schell's has a number of events happening throughout the summer. Check it out at wcco.com/links. Know of a place I should visit? Please let me know. Thanks for joining us for this summer edition of Finding Minnesota.